Are you ready to make millions and billions and billions and millions? Well, in today's video on the Crypto Bliss community, we are going to be speaking all about what the economy is doing right now and where your thinking should be, because there is a massive chess game being played that is evidently very tilted towards the one side. But I suppose each side does have the negotiation tools to facilitate some level of communication and agreement amongst one another on either side of this absolutely massive global trade war crazy relationship status between the US and China. Well, in this video, you are going to learn a heck load about everything that I've just said and so much more. So make sure to stay tuned right to the very end. And thank you for being here with me on the Crypto Bliss channel and community. I truly appreciate you. One of the things that I will show you shortly is that I did sell my XRP for... Go check it out for yourself. And that's why. You will see why I've done that. But anyways, Bitcoin undoubtedly is going to infinity. It has happened. We're mega bullish. There has been a reset. There was a small disaster, but my friends, disaster is opportunity. Okay, and that's the way you should be seeing this, is opportunity. Now, let's move on to the absolute juicy. So I'm going to start off. Stablecoin transactions surpasses Visa payments in total volume for the first time in 2024. Boom! Where do you think the liquidity is going to come through? It's going to come through crypto. It's going to come through stable coins. And those stable coins, okay, are going to be transacted at some point through Visa. But why would I pay an additional fee through Visa when I can just transact through my crypto wallet for the single fee that I pay? And if you use Tron, that's cents, like micro cents even, okay? So my friends, I'm not sure this makes actual sense to be paying with Visa, but look at Visa and their ridiculous transaction fees, etc. Okay, there's so much in this all. I wonder if the old world is dissolving and disintegrating, even though they may have to adapt, and if they don't adapt fast enough, they will dissolve into absolute nothingness. Trump slams the Fed chair Jerome Powell, calling him too late and wrong, and says Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. The ECB is expected to cut interest rates for the 7th time, and yet too late Jerome Powell of the Fed, who is always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. Oil prices are down, grocery, even eggs are down, and the USA is getting rich on tariffs. Too late should have lowered interest rates like ECB long ago, but he should certainly lower them now. Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Now, one of Trump's administrators, we'll touch base on it a little moment, but one of Trump's administrators recently announced that possibly could be a bad idea and could end up shaking the markets. We'll have a look at that just now. The US must refinance $14 trillion in debt over the next 3 years. Investors want inflation protection, and Van Eck proposes Bitcoin bonds. So you have the US government needs to refinance 14 trillion amount of debt over the next 3 years. Interest rates are relatively high versus history. Must maintain continued investor demand for bonds, dissolves novel reserve assets. And so they believe that the middle point between US government debt and bond investments are bonds, which is a very interesting proposal from Van Eck. Well, what does this do? The US government offers a 90% government bond plus 10% Bitcoin purchased with proceeds of sale. Sale value equals $100, redemption equals 90 plus BTC value. the investor receives all BTC gains up until maximum annualized YTM of 4.5% on purchase of value of the bond. If BTC gains enough to provide a 4.5% YTM to the investor, the government and the BitBond investor split remaining gains 50-50. Sounds like a fair deal to me. Who knows? What could be this next wave, my friends? You let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Now, the very interesting thing is that if you can't beat Bitcoin, you must join it. That is the rule of life, right?
And look who's here, Anthony Pompliano. He knows a lot about the crypto business. And he says, good morning, Anthony. He says Bitcoin is the new S&P 500. Okay, make your case.
Well, if you look at what the S&P 500 is, it's really a benchmark for most investors. And if we look in 2024, only 4 or 5 different hedge funds actually outperformed the S&P 500. So it serves as this great benchmark to say, are you doing better or worse than the market? But the problem with the S&P 500 is that it doesn't trade 24/7, 365. Bitcoin does. And Bitcoin is also a very large asset with a very liquid market that is constantly trading. It's the most sensitive asset to global liquidity. And the younger generation is now using this as their benchmark. And their theory is that if you can't beat Bitcoin, you have to buy Bitcoin.
But there's room for 2 benchmarks, isn't there?
There's always room for multiple benchmarks, but I think what really people are trying to get at is what is the market actually performing? And if you look at the S&P 500, gold outperformed the S&P 500 in 2024. And so if gold is outperforming and doesn't have earnings, doesn't have cash flow, a lot of people start asking themselves, well, how much of the S&P 500 performance is actually just currency debasement rather than the businesses getting?
What's more privy and more interesting at this point in time is that banks are going to have to become more aggressive in adopting Bitcoin, says VanEck CEO.
It's a good chance that central banks and sovereign wealth funds will start to get more aggressive in adopting Bitcoin, not only as a store of value, but also as a medium exchange. So this year, the Czech Republic, the governor of the central bank there, has initiated a study to analyze Bitcoin for inclusion in their central bank reserves. And then just this week, Russia did a trade with China, partially denominated in Bitcoin, beginning to really use Bitcoin for the first time as a medium of exchange. And that's not for individuals buying coffee. That's for large-scale transactions where countries are using Bitcoin as an intermediary currency to do, say, an oil trade. And in that scenario where Bitcoin denominated trade could be, say, 5% of global trade, we get to a $3 million price per Bitcoin. That's a long-term prediction, like 2050, but that's going to be necessary, we think, to elevate Bitcoin into the millions per coin.
What a beautiful observation in this moment from VanEck CEO. And all I can say to you right now is that he's talking about 3 million. Wow, my friends. Could you imagine much higher than that? Say 43 million? The fact that the Russian ruble is the strongest currency in the world this year after appreciating 38% against the US dollar tells us that it is stronger than gold, stronger than all of the other currencies. I wonder why that is. Because they've debased the depreciating dollar. And so Jack Mallers believes that the only solution for these governments is to print money. Bitcoin's going to go up.
Some Bitcoiner sitting on a beach, not giving a crap about anything going on. He's getting some sun, going for a swim, eating food he likes, listening to some music. And I could be screaming and kicking and ranting about the Fed and this central bank and this trade surplus did this. And at the end of the day, all it results is like people have to print money to solve their problems. And that Bitcoiner on the beach is like, yeah, I already knew that. And all I have to do is stay humble, stack sats, and chill. Because really, this is a Bitcoin podcast. And at the end of the day, guys, I can try and make this as simple as possible, but the simplest way for me to tell you what's going on is everyone's got problems. The only solution for these governments is to print money. Bitcoin's going to go up. You know what I mean? Yeah, someone said Jack's describing himself in his free time. Yeah, I am. I mean, your Bitcoin thesis could be this simple. Printing money is the only solution. I'm going to own the scarcest thing I can. Boom. Go to the beach. That's it. You know, if you want to listen to this podcast, I love the, the macroeconomics and making sense of the world. And, I want to develop my own opinions. I think, if we want to restore any sense of harmony to society, it's going to rest on the idea that personal responsibility is important again. I'm not going to delegate and outsource my diet. I'm not going to delegate and outsource my opinions. I'm not going to delegate and outsource my portfolio. The man that I want to be is I have my own opinions. I have my own thoughts. I have my own curiosities. I'm not afraid to be wrong. I have a willingness to be vulnerable in the pursuit of truth. And so that's why I try and follow my curiosities. I want to develop my own opinions. I want to engage with the free market and with the internet and with open conversation. But if you wanted to simplify it, the only solution is to print money. Bitcoin will go up. Close your laptop. The sun's warm somewhere. Find a beach.
Truly, that was very inspirational from Jack Morless. So thanks to Jack Morless for sharing that. And if you agree with Jack Morless, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views and your opinions. I do, and I'm just simply saying to you that you are an individual. You are a unique individual, and you should be free-spirited, free-speeched at any moment in your life. Take charge of your life, serve yourself, and create the best possible life for you and your family. Pompliano says that the US government isn't just holding Bitcoin, it's gearing up to buy more. He met with the digital assets head of President's Digital Asset Council, who told him the plan is to buy as much as possible.
A sort of all green lights ahead for the taxpayer effectively to be buying Bitcoin, because that's what we're talking about.
So they're talking about tariff money going for
So I went down to Washington, D.C. last week to the White House. I interviewed Bo Hines, who's the executive director of the President's Advisor Council for Digital Assets. And I explicitly asked him this question. The thing that he said to me that I think kind of took away was not only are they going to have the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, which we have, they are going to buy as much Bitcoin as they possibly can. And
with what money? And does that have to be authorized by Congress?
So there's a bunch of different ways they could do it. I think what they're trying to figure out is what is the best way to do it. And so a couple of examples would be they could revalue the gold. They could sell some of that. They can then go and they could buy Bitcoin.
Does that have to be done with Congress's approval?
There's a debate around who would be responsible, who would be involved. And they have
all this has to be done with executive order? I mean,
well, they have an interagency group right now that's working together. And so at that table is everyone from energy policymakers to law enforcement to economic advisors. Kind of everyone is trying to figure this out. I don't think you're going to see kind of very rash decision making kind of unilaterally, but I do think that working group is trying to figure it out. But you also have things like the tariff revenue or other areas where we may be saving money that we previously were wasting or abusing. And so I think that is probably, to me, the thing that the market most misunderstands is it's not just, hey, we're going to hold the Bitcoin. They are going to actively try to buy Bitcoin. And there's other countries around the world, they may be acquiring Bitcoin by mining and using natural resources that they have there. And so I think there's a lot of strategies here that the U.S. is going to pursue.
Okay. And in such a way, you can see that my trade is now back in profit. So use my Bybit link down pinned in the description of this video below, because I can tell you right now that Bitcoin is currently sitting above the median line, the median average, moving average on the Bollinger Band. We are literally underneath the 100-day moving average here, and we are under the demand zone here, which means that this baseline right here now is getting ready to launch through the green line. I don't think, unless we see something like this happen, a kind of a doji or reversal candle happen around this area, and then there's a red to follow, that would tell me that we'd probably come back down to about 80K. But guys, I'm not so sure. I don't see that happening anymore. But on the 7th of May, I do see an absolute pump up to the upside on Bitcoin. So make sure to get into that trade. Use my Bybit link down below. And you can see here that it's planning out quite nicely according to my drawing that I did for us a couple weeks back, or a couple days back. And so you can see here right now that we are literally bouncing right perfectly off of this zone here at this point. And so you can see that the S&P 500 is a little bit oversold on stochastic, but undervalued on the MACD. And cool, we might be having a little bit of a pullback on the M2. I don't know. We could pull back to the 618 down to this level. We shall see, won't we? Right? I did tell you the other day to sell your XRP. Okay, why is that? Look at this resistance. We're bouncing here. Look at this. Stochastic overheated and MACD not so much steam. Okay, and so I did tell you to sell it for hype. Okay, so I've done so, and hype has now gained. I've probably gained about 25% on that trade because I bought it at about 50, not 25%, maybe like 5-6% up. Okay, actually, let's look at that because I did buy it at that bottom. 10%. There you go. All right, 10% on that trade already, and we're just getting started. So if you haven't, get some before it breaks out here. You can see this is a shoulder, head forming, possibly another shoulder coming down the line. But right now it's a shoulder, a head, and a potential shoulder that's busy forming here right now. All right, China.
As a result of the tariffs, this week we saw Chinese President Xi Jinping visit with 3 of our allies. Should you be worried that they're growing closer?
No. Nobody can compete with us. Nobody.
You said they have with President Xi. Why not pick up the phone and call him and make a deal?
Oh, we're going to make a deal. We'll have a deal. I think we're going to make a very good deal with China.
Do you plan to talk him?
I think that you will see we'll make a very good deal with China.
Mr. President, you are worried about
how absolutely inevitable was that? They know that they have the power. That's why they bullied China into 245% potential tariffs if they didn't come to the table and hit with a negotiation. So I guess Trump played his cards so well, and it has put him in the position of power. And we shall see how that trade actually unfolds at the moment, because, yeah, this really has been the incredible moment for now. All right. So I was speaking to you earlier on about removing Fed Chair Powell. Mr. Besant warned that removing Fed Chair Powell could literally rattle markets. I do agree with that, and I don't believe Trump will do so. He's threatening Powell because he's trying to say to Powell, well, I'm the big boss here, and I make the decisions, not you. And Mr. Powell saying, well, fuck you. I'm in control of this vehicle, and I don't take instruction from you. And the reason that is because the Federal Reserve, just by the way, is a privately owned institution that just controls the fucking money supply. They are the conduit to the US dollar trading globally and how that is affected by interest rate decisions. Now, Mr. Trump says that he has had a very productive call with the president of Mexico yesterday. Likewise, I met with the highest level Japanese trade representatives. It was a very productive meeting. Every nation, including China, wants to meet. Today is Italy. The US officials plan to pressure over 70 nations to block China from routing goods through their countries and stop Chinese firms from relocating there to dodge US tariffs, according to the Wall Street Journal. Like I said, Trump has played his chess game so well, and he's cornered China. Now, very interestingly so, Oklahoma Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill fails to pass the committee. And in his closing statement, Senator Guthrie claims there has not been a period of 4 years that Bitcoin has lost money. Bitcoin is now going away. Let's hear this beautiful sentiment.
Senator Guthrie, would you care to close the debate? Senator Guthrie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Bitcoin is hard to grasp. This is not something new. This is, if you look at Bitcoin over the last 10 years, like I said, it has a 12,000% increase and 49% annualized return. There has not been a period of 4 years that Bitcoin has lost money. Bitcoin is not going away. And I also want to say thank you very much, Senator Hall, for taking the time and going through this and discussing this with me. That I really do have a lot of respect for you for that. Oklahoma can be last, or we can be at the front of the line. And there's a lot of things we're last in. And this is going to come around at some point where if we don't do this today, we're going to do this at some point. This bill puts guardrails in place. It limits to 5%. It says we're only investing in something that has a market cap of $500 billion. That is not a small investment. This does not have people's hands in it. This is not a company that can fail. Bitcoin is too big to fail. It is already in place. It is an asset. It will not fail. It cannot go away. So if you look at companies, and Senator, you mentioned .com were run by people. People are flawed. People make bad decisions, and they can fail. And what we saw with the .com, that is exactly what happened. This is not that case. Like I said, we can be first. Get in first of the line, be proactive, and do something where we are having a fiduciary duty to also make good investments with our constituents' investments and money. And this is up to 5%. This is not say we have to do 5%. This says we can do 0.5%. The foreign bonds are 0.6%. That is not, I don't believe that is a good investment. This is something we could replace that with. But we could leave this in the hands of the treasurer. They're statewide elected official. They are in the position to make those good sound investments, as well as the pension board. They will vet these before they make any kind of decisions such as this. So I would respectfully ask for your support and put Oklahoma on the map as moving forward. And I'll close with that, Mr. Chair.
The vote will now occur on House Bill 12.
Well, there you have it. What an incredible sentiment, and I believe that will get to a point where the decision is turned around in the near future. We shall have to stay tuned to see where that goes. However, interesting that I sold XRP, because XRP leads altcoin ETF race with nearly 10 active applications, followed by Solana, Litecoin, and Doge, according to the SEC filings tracked by Kaiko Research. Which crypto ETF do you think will be approved first? And so you can see here, XRP has 10 applications in, Solana has 5, Litecoin 3, Doge 3, AVAX 2, Hedera 2, DOT 2, Sui 1, Move 1, HBAR 1, Cardano 1, Aptos 1. Very interesting, right? And so what I can say to you here, my friends, is that in this moment, okay, XRP has had a tremendous amount of hype. And like I expressed to you in my video here for you, XRP is a much higher market cap, and the larger the quantity of current market cap, the larger or the smaller the gain to the upside, because it becomes harder to gain to the upside. And so, you know, I'd appreciate you sharing some love here with me on the Crypto Bliss community and channel. And it's been such a real pleasure being here with you once again. So thank you for being here. And please make sure that if you are still around, that you are subscribed to the Crypto Bliss community. You let me know what your thoughts are about everything that I've shared with you down in the comments below. Let me know if you believe that Bitcoin at some point may hit $43 million and why. Thank you for being here. We'll see you on the next one.